What are better, machines or free weights? What's up, everybody? Coach Tony from Bonvec Strength. And I know when I first started getting into powerlifting and when I first started getting into coaching, there was a huge belief that machines were inferior to free weights in every way, shape, or form. Free weights forced you to use more stabilizer muscles, whatever those are, required more coordination, they were more functional overall, and that machines were kind of for people who didn't really care about getting big and strong. Of course, we know that's not the real answer. Obviously, for powerlifters, free weights are what we have to lift for our sport in the squat, bench, deadlift, but after that, you can use whatever tool you want to get the job done, and oftentimes machines are objectively better for building muscle than free weights. It just depends on the situation. So I'm going to talk about a couple of exercises where machines are indeed better than free weights in order to build muscle. So let's throw it out there right away that free weights are usually going to be superior to machines when it comes to actually improving your skill in the squat, bench, and deadlift. We use a lot of supplementary lifts, which are close relatives of the squat, bench, and deadlift, just a couple of degrees removed, that have some sort of teaching component built in. An example would be like a front squat would be a supplementary lift for a back squat. It is a squat. You can load it similar to a back squat, but it's not exactly the same. It's going to teach you some things about torso positioning. It's going to teach you some things about core bracing. In that case, like a front squat would be a better way to build the back squat than say like a leg press. Leg press is an awesome machine, really good way to build your legs, but it's not going to have the same carryover to the back squat. So in cases like that, free weights are almost always the right answer because of the specificity component. You're not going to be nearly as specific to the skill of the main lift if you're using a machine. However, when it comes to putting on muscle mass, to hypertrophy, to getting bigger, and we know that getting bigger is a really good way to give you the potential to get stronger, machines often fit the bill. But you got to ask yourself first, what's required in order for something to be a good hypertrophy exercise? First rule is that exercise has to be loadable. You have to be able to progress the load down the line so you can eventually add more and more resistance. An example of an exercise that is not properly loadable for hypertrophy would be like a band tricep pushdown. So you loop a band around the top of a pull-up bar and you do a bunch of tricep pushdowns. That's not a great way to progress the load because you only have the tension of the band. You're not able to add weight via adding plates to the bar. You're not able to add weight by increasing how much you're using on the cable stack. A better example of that would be like a cable tricep pushdown where you can gradually increase the weight over time. So is it loadable? Rule number 2, can you fail within a hypertrophy rep range? Hypertrophy can be induced by doing anywhere from like 8 all the way up to like 30 reps. And can you approach muscular failure in that rep range? If you fail fewer than 8 reps, probably more of a strength exercise. If you're able to just go indefinitely and get up to 40, 50, 60 reps and beyond, we're looking more at muscular endurance. It's probably not going to drive hypertrophy. And then the third and perhaps the most important rule is, does the target muscle group fail first? In a lot of cases, free weight exercises, something else fails before the target muscle group. Something about your coordination is the first thing to go. Maybe your grip strength is the first thing to go. A great example would be back squats. Squats are my favorite exercise in the world, but I'm willing to admit that sometimes they're not a great hypertrophy exercise because your legs almost never fail first in the squat. It's going to be something about your upper back. It's going to be your core positioning. It's just not going to be your legs that give out first. Can back squats make your legs bigger? Sure, but they wouldn't be my number one choice. I'd be more likely to look at something like a Hatfield squat. Again, we talked about the leg press, some sort of hack squat, something where definitively you can say my legs are going to fail before anything else. That makes it a great hypertrophy exercise. All right, as promised, a couple instances where machines are superior to free weights when it comes to building muscle. The first thing I always think of is a lat pull down versus a pull up. People love their pull ups. It's this sacred exercise. It's a pretty cool exercise to be able to do well, but pull ups typically fail the target muscle group test in the sense that your upper back, your lats are probably not going to be the first thing to fail when you're doing pull-ups. You're probably going to have your grip give out first, or your forearms or your biceps. Something's going to give before your upper back truly fails. And there's just not a lot of people who can do a ton of pull-ups in a hypertrophy rep range. We train a lot of lifters who are pretty strong in the squat, bench, and deadlift, but struggle to do 8+ pull-ups. In their case, doing some sort of lat pull down makes a lot more sense. You're training the same movement pattern, you're training the same muscle groups, but you're able to actually let your lats and your upper back fail first without the skill component or any of the grip components of a pull-up. Another example would be dumbbell lateral raises versus some sort of cable lateral raise. Now, lateral raises are a great way to develop your medial delts without having to kind of go through the whole song and dance of doing some sort of overhead press, which is more anterior delts anyways. But by using a cable, you get a lot of really good benefits here. When you're doing a dumbbell lateral raise, you don't get a ton of tension at the bottom of the exercise where the shoulders are actually in their lengthened position. And I've said it a million times, there seems to be something magical about creating a lot of tension in a muscle's lengthened position when it comes to building muscle. And if you're doing just a regular lateral raise and those dumbbells hit your sides at the bottom, there's no tension at that lengthened position. And as you lift your arm up, you probably only start to get a lot of tension in that muscle, kind of in the top half of the range of motion. So that's not really a great way to build muscle if you're only getting mechanical tension in about half the range of motion. When you do a one arm cable lateral raise, like in this video, you get your arm across your body, so you get a little bit of a stretch in that shoulder, and you get to create tension much earlier in the range of motion. So almost pretty much 100% of your range of motion has sufficient muscular tension. You're not going to use momentum, you're going to have to go really light, but I guarantee you're going to keep tension on that target muscle throughout the entire range of motion. And then the final example here is rear delt flies. So rear delts that sit on the upper back, which is kind of a key component in filling in the upper back and helps create that foundation for the bar to sit on when you back squat. It helps kind of pull your upper back together when you bench press. Now, typically you'd see rear delt flies done with dumbbells, either chest supported, face down on an incline bench, or just sitting and kind of like rounded over with a relaxed upper back position, because that's a pretty good way to hit your rear delts. But similar to lateral raises, you really only get a lot of muscular tension kind of at the top of the movement, and rear delts are pretty small. They're a small muscle group relative to the rest of the upper back, so you can't use a ton of weight. A lot of times like 5-pound or 10-pound dumbbells, they're too heavy for a lot of people to use to do their rear delt flies with good technique. And then when you're trying to progress from 5 pounds to 10 pounds or from 10 pounds to 15 pounds, relatively speaking, those are huge jumps. They're not incremental enough for a lot of people. So something like a rear delt raise with a cable machine makes a little bit more sense. You're able to make smaller jumps, you're able to control the motion a little bit more, and just like our dumbbell lateral raise, you're able to reach across your body, get more of a stretch in the target muscle group at the bottom of the lift, and then create more tension throughout the entire range of motion. So I'm a really big fan of both kind of the reaching across the body in the lateral raise as well as the rear delt fly. So the answer to the question, what's better, machines or free weights? Of course it depends, but I showed you a couple of examples of situations where machines are indeed superior to free weights for the goal that you're trying to achieve, and most of the time that goal is building muscle, training for hypertrophy. So use the right tool for the job at hand, just don't be dogmatic about it. Machines are not always inferior to free weights and vice versa.